Hello there, my name is Ricardo and I'm a developer advocate with Elastic. In today's video, I'm going to help you to perform your first contribution to the Elastic Contributor program. Specifically, we're going to be talking about how to perform contributions about written content, which can be, as you may know, blogs or articles that you have wrote about the technologies, products, or solutions from Elastic. Let's get to it. Your first step would be coming up with something to write. Now, I know this might be a little scary sometimes, but the main idea here is instead of being creative and spending lots of time trying to coming up with something useful and interesting, try to focus on your work, the things you build, the things you fix, and put this in a story that you could tell to your readers. Writing content based on your personal experiences is quite powerful. There are three different ways for you to tell your story. The first one is called a journey. A journey represents the series of steps that you had to undergo in order to accomplish something. The second one is a use case. A use case is some sort of a variation of a journey, but it is more structured in a sense that it has four main sessions: a context, a problem, the solution for the problem, and all the results that came after you applied the solution. Lastly, there are lessons learned. As the name implies, lessons learned are going to be all those experimentations that you did when you were building an application or when you were creating something. Those lessons can be either something good or bad that you've learned while you were doing your experimentations. After you choose how you're going to tell your story, it's now time to turn those ideas into action. Before putting down your first word into writing, try to remember that writing isn't about perfection. It's about delivering something that is valuable. So, as you write, try to always remember and ask yourself, am I delivering something useful for the reader? If not, correct yourself and choose an alternative way to express whatever you're trying to say. A very important aspect of reading content is you should know your audience. This is important because it's going to help you to manage your expectations about how much details you should put to explain a given concept. Also, there are two types of reading content. The first one is formal articles, where the language is usually more academic and elaborated, and there are casual blogs where obviously the language doesn't necessarily have to be so elaborate and might be sometimes laid back and even witty. Make sure to proofread your text before you publish it. This is extremely important because it's going to reveal how much professionalism you have applied to your writing. Now, let me share something very, very important with you. We all have different communication styles, and this is what makes great content. The way you create emphasis for a given concept, the way you break down something into bite-sized chunks, even your sense of humor plays a key role in how do you communicate your content in writing. So my advice, try to embrace it. Once you have your written content ready, you are going to access the Elastic Contributor Program portal to submit the content. Here are the steps to do this. First, access the Elastic Contributor Program portal by clicking on Start Contributing. Once you do this, you're going to be shown this page where there will be this login button here on the right upper corner of your screen. Click on the login button. You are going to be asked to log in into your existing Elastic Cloud account. If you don't have an Elastic Cloud account, don't worry. You can always create one from scratch by any time. I already have one, so I'm going to click and use the existing account that I have. After you log in, you are going to be redirected to this page over here that provides you with the leaderboard, where you can see the other contributors and their scores, and what are their ranks in terms of the contributor program. Don't worry about this at this time. Just go ahead and click Submit Contributions. This page provides you with a very simple form that essentially expects you to fill some very important information, such as what type of contribution you are trying to provide. So in here in the category field, you are going to select written content. And then under topic, you are going to select what is your contribution about. So what you wrote about the Elastic Stack, you wrote about something related to observability or security or enterprise search. So I'm going to pretend this reading content here is about the Elastic Stack, right? Just for the sake of example. And then you are going to be asked about what were the language that you've used to come up with your written content, right? So in this example here, I'm going to pick English, right? But you could pick whatever language you've used to write your written content, right? And finally, one of the most important pieces of information is the URL of your publicly available written content. So just pass here the URL of the blog you wrote. Remember that this URL has to be publicly accessible. So it means that whoever is going to review your submission needs to be able to access that URL without being prompted by some credentials or some security measure. It has to be public, right? And finally, you are going to write what is the title of your contribution. This is a very easy pick because usually you are going just to copy and paste the title that you already gave to your written content that is publicly available, or you can just write here another example of title that explains what your what your written content is about. So in my case, I'm going to write here written content for the Elastic Contributor Program, which is basically the blog that I wrote. And then you are going to set here what was the date and that you wrote the content. Wrote or publish. Usually it is always a better idea for you to use the date that you have published your content. So just pick a date. It doesn't necessarily have to be today, but the daytime picker here is here for this, right? And in the description field, you are going to succinctly describe what your written content is about. Remember, this is not necessarily for you here to sell your content, right? This is more like a TLDR version of your content, so whoever is going to review it can have an initial idea about what your content is about. So, for example, in my blog, I basically provide tips about how to create written content, right? Very simple. And then finally, you are going to click on the Send button. Whew! I think we've done it. It wasn't that hard, was it? I hope you feel more comfortable with your contributions, and even if you're not, don't hesitate to get in touch with the Elastic community team that we are always going to be available for you to help you with whatever thing you need from Elastic, either for the Elastic Contributor Program or for everything else. This is it for today, and see you next time.